Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Brand Bosses podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Jamie Chernahoy, your host, founder and CEO of Brand Bosses, a digital marketing agency based in Wayzata, Minnesota. So today we have a special guest. Cassie Tucker is joining us. So Cassie is an independent marketing strategy consultant who helps clients articulate compelling messages that resonate with their target audiences, drive meaningful connections, and ultimately fuel sales growth. In the corporate world, she worked for a New York social media agency, Socialfly, as well as many high-profile brands such as Nest Fragrances. As an entrepreneur, Cassie combines her work in marketing and her former experience as a Disney cast member to make magic for her clients. Through her work as a co-host of Marketing Happy Hour, Cassie is committed to empowering and encouraging young professionals on their career journeys. Additionally, she serves as a strategic advisor to the board and podcast host for the nonprofit The Leadership Crucible Foundation. In her free time, Cassie enjoys visiting the Orlando theme parks and spending time with her husband and 2 dogs. She currently lives in sunny Central Florida. So welcome to the show, Cassie.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Jamie. I really appreciate it. It's always so fun being on the other side of the podcast mic here. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. And you're down in Florida, but it sounds like you're having some not so Florida weather. Is that right?
Yeah, it's so funny. I have no room to complain to you, of course, but we call it our Florida cold. So it's like it's a very weird time of year. But we do have what we think is cold every once in a while down here in Florida. So that's what we're experiencing.
Yeah. No, I love Florida. I've been there a handful of times. I think the last trip I went on, we went to Deerfield Beach. Do you know
Uh-huh.
where that is?
Yeah. It's like down south, I think, right? Like
Yeah.
close to Boca and everything.
Yep. Yes. And
Yeah.
it was so beautiful. And it was just like the most perfect little, I don't know, like Florida town. And it
Yeah.
just was so fun to visit. But we also went on spring break, so that was questionable. But
Oh my
it
goodness.
was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, it's so nice down there. I helped back in my corporate days, I helped open a restaurant down there and we got to stay for like 5 days and it was so nice being down there. And I have
Wow.
not been back since, but I really need to. So this is a good reminder to do that.
Yeah, and let's go back to those corporate years. So tell
Yeah.
me, so you worked in New York, so obviously very
Hmm.
different from probably where
Yes.
you are today. So tell me a little bit about kind of that experience at Socialfly and kind of what made you start your own kind of journey into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so moving to New York was definitely on a whim. So I grew up in Florida. I was not born here, but I've lived here most of my life. And I was in the hospitality industry. So again, opened restaurants and did marketing for different chains down here. And there was a point where I kind of looked at my experience and I said, I love this industry, but I feel like I need to diversify a bit. So I went to New York for the first time ever in 2018. And I remember getting out of the subway station for the first time, like, this is wild. Like, this is so, so cool. And I immediately fell in love and I came back home and applied for jobs. And literally, like, 6 weeks later, ended up moving to the city, which is absolutely insanity. So definitely, like, I love taking risks, but that was definitely like a uncalculated risk in a way. But I was like, I think this is the right step. I need to get this experience. So I moved there, and during that time, I was getting some clients on the side, just people kind of reaching out to me who knew me through past experiences, and they were just asking, "Hey, can you run my social media account for me?" Or, "Hey, can you, help me write copy for these blog posts or whatever?" And I'm like, "Sure." Like, never fully anticipated taking on my own clients ever, but I liked the idea again of just kind of stretching my limits, getting different experience outside of what I was doing. And so started taking those on and eventually realized after my time at Socialfly, where I did a lot of brainstorming and client management and campaign building for a number of different national and international clients, that I was like, this is kind of awesome. Like the agency setting is really cool to be able to work with a number of different industries and serve a number of different people and be a part of these different brand launches and just growth phases and everything. So I was like, I feel like maybe I could do this on my own. I don't know, maybe. So I made the decision that, okay, that's going to be my next step. But prior to that, I think I need some management experience. I was an account executive at the agency. So I wasn't necessarily managing people and kind of taking leadership over different projects. So I eventually got offered a director of marketing position back in Florida. So I ended up moving back and I took the position because, again, I was like, I think this is kind of the step I need to just stretch my skill set a little bit further to prepare myself maybe to go off on my own and run my own business. So I was there for a little bit and then eventually I made the leap. My client load kind of helped support my, lifestyle and just paying rent and putting food on my table and everything. So I made the leap in October of 2019, right before the pandemic, which was fun. And so ever since then, I've been off on my own.
Wow. I think you and I have very similar stories.
Yeah,
So I also was in corporate and then kind of took the leap.
it's
So
awesome.
that's just, I can definitely relate to you. And, is that we also have to wear the finance hat,
Yeah.
the accounting hat. We have to market our own business. Even though we're marketing 20 other businesses, we also have to do our own, the sales hat. And so how has it been kind of navigating that for you? Like, do you have some mentors or people in your family that you've been able to rely on, or how have you kind of navigated that?
Yeah. So to your point, it's a lot to focus on. And I think, to be honest, that was probably the biggest learning curve of just figuring out not only I've always found to be myself a organized person for the most part, but it's like a different level of organization when you're managing a number of different campaigns, and especially first starting out, like managing the clients, managing invoicing and all this stuff on your own, pre having a team even. And so it was definitely hard, and still to this day I would say the business side of it is a challenge for sure. It's obviously there's a lot of pieces that aren't super fun, but for me what I've had to remember is just why I'm doing it in the first place. And so I always encourage, whether you're still in corporate or jumping off into entrepreneurship, to anyone looking to build a career, I'm like, hardship will come, things will happen, but just remember why you're doing it in the first place. And I think that's something that kind of snaps me back into reality of just, I'm here to serve and help people. And yeah, there's bad days and yeah, there's tough things that happen. But I think, kind of going back to your question too, the thing for me that's been really helpful over the years as I'm able to delegate, for example, is getting people in the positions who do those different functions way better than I do,
Mm-hmm.
trusting them with that. And then also just over communicating, over documenting everything, and just making sure you keep everything in line, and you'll figure out systems and operational elements that work for you.
Yeah.
But it definitely takes time. So I think just having patience with yourself and knowing that it's a necessary function to be able to continue operating.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it takes some learning to understand what your
Yeah.
strengths are, especially when you start out. Like I'm right there with you. Like I thought I was good at graphic design until I met our graphic designers. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, it was very humbling. But
Yeah.
it takes a leader to be able to say, you know what, I'm not as good at this as they are, and therefore, they need to have this so that I can have more time for the things that I do best,
Yes.
right?
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think again, it's hard, like, especially after you've done that function yourself for so
Mm-hmm.
long, to be able to let go of that task. But I think, to your point, like focusing on those things that only you can do, connecting with clients, building relationships out there, whatever your function of expertise is, focusing on that. And there's amazing people out there that can do the rest. So congrats and kudos to you too for being able to build out such an awesome team. And
Yeah.
so hopefully you're able to just focus mostly on kind of what you do best too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think we're getting there. I
Yeah.
think one book that's helped me a lot is, well, I guess two. One is Who Not How by Dan
Oh,
Sullivan. I don't know if you've read that one.
no,
And
I'll have
then
to
the
check that
other
out.
one is Buy Back Your Time, Dan Martell.
Okay. I'll have to
So
check those out.
yeah, that one's kind of popular right now, but just it talks about literally what we're talking about now, like how to best
Yeah.
delegate and why that is so critical. And I think
Yeah.
it's scary at first because it's a
Mm-hmm.
stretch, right, financially, and just navigating having to lead a team,
Mm-hmm.
that can be quite the adjustment. And so I'm curious as to like how have you navigated being a leader and like gain those leadership skills?
Ooh, so I think first of all, that's such a great question. The first thing for me is just having to, I think, ultimately try and stay as humble as possible and know that my leadership skills are never going to be fully developed. I think for me, I've found it's a lifelong learning thing. I think there's always something to learn about other people and how to communicate more effectively and how to push a vision and mission forward. And so I think that's number one is just remembering like you're going to continuously learn how to do that better and better. And I think the other thing too is just mentorship. Mentorship for me in the leadership space has been huge, and just leaning on people that have been there and done that and have effectively not only pushed business results but have been able to create this reputation of being a really strong leader and a great human being first and foremost. And so for me, it's just reading a lot. Like I've read a ton of books on leadership, but also just having those firsthand relationships with people who I can ask questions to and be challenged by in those situations. And then I think ultimately it's just learning by doing, right? Like for me, I've found it important to really make note of my personal values and ethics and what do I believe to be true as a human being and how do I want those infused into the way that I treat team members or the way
Yeah.
that I treat my clients and everything. And so that has been, I think, first and foremost, the foundation for making decisions and
Yeah.
just the way that I operate. And so I think that's been really important too. But I think, yeah, just trial and error, like going with your gut on a lot of decisions and the way that you handle situations. I think it's scary, especially when you face something new for the first time, but allowing yourself to kind of that term fall forward, like,
Yeah.
or fail forward, like make decisions. If it doesn't work out, like
Yeah.
what can you learn from that and how can you just do better next time? But I feel like a lot in leadership, and I wonder if you face this too, but you face new situations and new scenarios on a regular basis. So it's this like constant, I don't know, it's like always new and evolving. And so I think the other thing too is just like slowing down, making sound decisions, assessing all of the details, and just again not being afraid to lean on people to get insight on those situations as well.
Yeah, no, I think that was really well said. And I think there's a season for, the grind and the rush
Hmm.
and that's a whole season that I think comes your first year, your first couple years, whatever. And then there gets to be a season, which you're kind of talking about right now, which is like a restful period. Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's take a deep breath and let's understand where is it that we're going with our business? And, what am I doing as a leader that's contributing to the growth? And what am I doing that's not, right? I think it takes a
Yeah.
lot of reflection. And it takes a sense of almost like humbleness to be able to
Hmm.
look and be like, okay, I'm actually not treating my team that well, or I'm not treating my clients, or I'm not showing up with the energy that we need to show up with. And, an example of that I experienced was one of my team members came to me. This would have been, I don't know, over the summer, and they said something of the nature, when you leave this comment in Slack or whatever it is, like
Hmm.
it makes me feel like you're just rushing past me, or they felt comfortable enough to bring some of this criticism to me. And I remember it vividly because the Wi-Fi went out at our office, so we were at a coffee shop. And so it was just such a beautiful moment too for me to be like, okay, I need to take a breath, I need to take a step back. So like I'm saying to you, and as we're talking about right now, it's like it takes such a humbleness and a humility to be able to see, okay, here are the ways that I need to grow. Otherwise, us as entrepreneurs, we're either gonna limit our business or we're gonna allow it to grow. Like
Right.
that's just a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think with that too, some of the situations I've seen friends face recently or I've just experienced with my leaders in the past is almost not taking things super personally either. I think just remembering that, especially when you're dealing with other people, there are situations that people are facing that we're unaware of, or maybe we're aware of, and it's a variable in the way that they're showing up or performing or whatever. And so I think, yeah, just remembering that, like, you have to kind of be strong in yourself and know that things happen and it's not always a knock against you as a human being. But I think with that, like, building trust with your team, for example, opens the door to breaking down those situations a little bit further and getting to the actual root of what's happening. And you have to have that open gateway for communication, or
For
else
sure.
things will definitely fall apart and it's more difficult to lead. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that will really help out someone who's starting a business or in their first kind of years of it. But I am really curious about your background at Disney.
oh, yeah.
So we have to talk about this because I
Yeah.
read your bio and it said you were a Disney character. Is that right?
So I wish. So
Okay.
it's so funny. So at Disney, everyone's called a cast member. So I
Okay, cast
worked
member.
in merchandising. It's not as fun and
Okay.
exciting, but it's hilarious. And you're actually reminding me I need to update my bio, but it's funny. I work in entertainment now for Universal Studios. So the place down the street, I host their podcast now. So it's like very funny. Like, I always dreamed, I was a theater kid. So like I always dreamed of being in entertainment at Disney. That hasn't or didn't end up happening. And now I'm like at the other company working in entertainment. So it's been fun. But yeah, my time at Disney was amazing. So I
Wow.
loved it. Yeah.
Have you like always loved it, like since a child? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 1000%. Like,
Wow.
ever since I was really young, I remember vacations as a family. And then when we moved to Florida when I was like 9, I was like, okay, we're only like an hour and 15 minutes from Disney. Like, I could totally work there. So,
So
yeah,
funny.
it was a great experience.
And so now you host a podcast, you said, for the entertainment side?
Yeah, at Universal. So essentially, since March of 24, I've been doing that. So that's like a fun contract position. So I have like my day job, which is the marketing stuff, but I get to go over there and host their show. So that's been really, just as a podcaster, it's stretched my limits, just in it's a different style of content. It's a corporate organization. So learning like how to podcast for that kind of company versus like my own brand, which is there's a lot less layers to it. But yeah, it's been really cool to be able to do
Wow.
that and just stretch my horizons a bit.
Yeah, that is so funny. So what kind of topics do you cover on that podcast?
Yeah, we do everything. We do updates with the brand, new events, new attractions, everything. So it's very much like, my degree is in PR. So it kind of, for me, it marries the entertainment level with the PR level with marketing. And so it's really fun for me to kind of like tap into all these different functions that I've either held in the past or currently hold, to be able to communicate clearly and effectively
Mhm.
some of these updates that we're sharing with people. But yeah, all different things.
Wow, that is so awesome. And I will say, since starting this podcast, I feel like just the way that I even articulate like what
Yeah.
we do and how I just like interact with clients has shifted and elevated for
Yeah.
sure. Because it's, when you're put on the spot, back in the day, I wanted to be a news anchor, right? So this was
Oh, I
like
love
my
that.
dream.
Yeah.
But, my professor said I would never get a white picket fence if I did that. So I pivoted and, with the entrepreneurial journey. And I will say this kind of satisfies, I think, a sense of that. But
Yeah.
also, it's really helped, just like I said, articulate and communicate, which is something I think anybody could keep in mind as they begin a brand and as they grow their brand. This might be a great outlet for them.
Yeah, for sure. No, I couldn't agree more. I think there's such a parallel. And so, even for me, just like being in meetings, for example, and being able to quickly answer questions or like
Yeah.
articulate an idea, it really makes you think about conciseness and like
Mhm.
sharing something that's clear and straightforward and to the point. So that's awesome. How long have you been podcasting for?
Oh, geez. I think probably over a year at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
How, like, between then and now, like, do you feel like it's been I don't know. I tell people all the time, I'm like thinking about the consistency of doing it
Yeah.
over time. Like, has it gotten easier, you feel, or was it kind of like a challenge at the beginning and versus
Yeah.
now, or how are you feeling about it now?
Yeah, well, it's just definitely been a passion project. It's been
Yeah.
something that I've just kind of done on the side just because, I think there's so much to learn from people who have built a strong brand that we can implement into our own brands. And that was really the heart of it. And, in terms of if it's gotten easier, it definitely has.
Yeah.
I don't stress about it as much. And that's not to say that I think our podcast is like the best it could be or the best on the planet, but,
Sure.
I think it does its job and it inspires people. And that's really like the meaning of it and the purpose. So as long as I'm fulfilling that, I'm happy. But I think, yeah, definitely like as a host, you have to kind of find your voice and you have
Yeah.
to understand when someone isn't really speaking that clearly or is getting tripped up or is really nervous. How do you handle that? Right. It's a
Right.
lot of kind of interpersonal skills too. And I think even more recently, I had an interviewee who was just kind of shaky and I could just tell they were just so nervous. And
Mhm.
it takes me to just say, it's going to be okay. Just
Yeah.
look at it
Yeah.
as a conversation between you
Yeah.
and me. Like, think about the people that's going to be helped by this. It just, like I said, I think it's really boosted my interpersonal
Mhm.
skills too.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too. It's such a great medium, and I find it to be so helpful for just like
Yeah.
creating content in general. It's a great macro piece of content to like pull from and develop, and a great gateway to like meet people too. I mean, you and I met solely because of
Yeah.
our podcast too. So it's such a cool networking tool, which has been
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And so let's talk about your podcast,
Yeah.
Marketing Happy Hour. So when did you start this and kind of what's the heart behind it?
Yeah. So, gosh, me and my co host, Erica, so originally founded it alongside one of my closest friends back in April of 2021. So it was like mid pandemic, actually, when Clubhouse, do you remember Clubhouse when that was big, like years
Yeah.
ago?
Uh-huh.
So, Clubhouse was in its heyday, and we were like, we go to happy hour, we have these conversations with all of our friends in marketing. How can we kind of take that and create a platform on it and share it with other people? Because the things that I was learning from my friends was so impactful. We were like, people I think would benefit from just hearing these kind of on the ground level, like people in the middle of the weeds dealing with some of these different strategies that they were building and campaigns and everything. Like, how can we kind of amplify that? So we started on Clubhouse in April of 2021 and had some really awesome conversations like very quickly with some amazing marketers and talked a lot about just marketing career and again more of those peer-to-peer conversations, like how are our peers growing and elevating in their careers and also in their brand strategies and what can we learn from that. So we had about 3 months of really awesome conversations on that platform, but then at the end of the day those conversations weren't being recorded. Like Clubhouse did not allow you to record. If you tried to record at any point, like they would literally tell you they were going to ban your account, like that kind of thing. The whole idea was like these live collaborative conversations. And so in June of that year, we switched over to podcast format. And so now for almost 4 years, yeah, the show's been going and moving. And I think the biggest, coolest thing for me that I've seen is just how marketing professionals specifically have been impacted by the show. And just again, hearing their peers talk about what they're doing currently to kind of get to the level where they want to be has been really amazing. And we've met a lot of awesome people. I've met really close friends through the show and have gained opportunities myself just from meeting people through that way. And it's been really awesome. And so unfortunately about 3 months ago, my co-host had to start focusing on her full-time position. She ended up landing a job after consulting for a long time and just got too busy. So for the last 3 months or so, I've been kind of in this pivot phase of figuring out and navigating hosting and producing and everything on my own. So it's been a nice challenge, but it's hard. Like podcasting is a lot of work, as you know. But I think for me, again, it's just remembering why I'm doing it and doing it to serve and to help my peers and also learn myself. And it's been an amazing experience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it helps keep your mindset on the listeners, right? Because
Yeah.
it is a lot of work, like you're saying. It's a whole setup. You have to create social for it. It's just a whole another branch to your business. And so it's not for the weary hearted for
Yeah.
sure, but it's definitely worth it when you hear, like, sometimes I'll have clients just be like, oh, I love that episode. Or I'll have family even just say,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I never like have thought about that before. And it's like, that's so worth it, right? And I
Hmm.
just like, the reason I'm sure that you started this similar to me is like, I was having all these amazing conversations with people and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
these need to be shared. Like this
Yes.
needs to be out there more. And so it's just been such a fun journey. And I'm so happy to hear like you've had a similar experience. And so
Yeah.
how have you have a great presence on social for the podcast, for your business. How have you kind of grown your brand as a whole using social?
Yeah, so it's really funny. For the first few years of running my own business, I was not good at talking about marketing online and promoting my services in any way. And so I think for me, the thing that's been helpful the last few years is just making that shift of seeing my business, a marketing happy hour as well, just as clients themselves and putting some prioritization into showing up online on a regular basis. That's been really helpful. But I think with that too is just consistency, like making it a priority to show up and really hone in exactly who am I speaking to, who's my target audience, and just providing value to them without, yes, there are posts that are meant to convert people and to get them to take a certain action. But I think just overall thinking about what is actually valuable to my audience and sharing content to help and support them. So I think that, and I think also too, just community focused strategies as well. So not only just putting content out there and hoping people find it, but using the different platform aspects to just meet people, build community, serve them, engage them in conversation over time. And so I think really those two are the biggest things. It goes back to what I was saying earlier of just remembering, why am I putting out this content in the first place and what is my eventual goal? And for me, it really is to help people with the content that I put out there. And even if a couple people see it and get excited about it, like that to me is really fulfilling, just to be able to help, a couple people at a time if it is. So,
Yeah. Well, I think that was really well said. And consistency is so key.
yeah.
And it's about, looking at social media as a mechanism to share what you're passionate about, I think,
Yeah.
ultimately. And so that's really fascinating for me to hear that you definitely share that. And that's kind of how you've grown your business, because you and I are similar in that sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, as you look back on your younger self, who is just entering into this whole marketing journey, this entrepreneurship journey, how would you approach them? Or what are some things that you would say to young Cassie?
Oh my goodness. Man, that is a great question. I think first and foremost, I think I needed to slow down a bit when I was younger. So I think that's the first thing. I talked about this recently in an episode actually, where when I was first starting my career, like I wanted to be as productive as possible and I would have a task list and I just wanted to get through it and like please my leaders and everything and get content done and get work done. And I missed and overlooked a lot of things doing that. And so I think number one, I would tell my younger self just to slow down, like take a beat, analyze, and everything. It's PR, not ER. We've heard that saying, and most of the time things aren't super urgent. So remembering that. And then I think the other thing too is just remembering to over communicate as well. A lot of questions, and don't be afraid to raise your hand and question things and ask why we're doing XYZ and what is kind of the goal and objective of what we're putting together. And so, yeah, over communication too. I think a lot of times I was afraid to raise my hand and provide ideas or ask some of those questions and fear that I would look uneducated or look unaware of what we were building. But I think a lot of times asking the right questions results in new concepts or ideas coming out of the woodwork. And a lot of times I think we as marketers are very close to subjects. And I think analyzing what are all of the possible questions that could be asked around a campaign or a message or whatever is important, because chances are if we are close to it and asking those questions, who knows what the consumer's asking too. So I think those two. And then on a career front and just building my business or just going through my career journey so far, it's just having patience with myself. And I know it's hard to kind of compare your own journey to someone else, but just remembering that you are where you are for a reason and trying to learn and experience as much as possible where you're at currently will get you to where you are called to be in the future, or where you're trying to go down the road. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that was so beautiful. And ultimately entrepreneurship is a marathon, it's not a sprint, right?
Mhm.
And I really appreciate that you mentioned rest, because this needs to be more and more spoken about when it comes to
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, when it comes to running your own business, is there needs to be a season for rest. And I was just
Yeah.
talking to a friend the other day where she was like, I'm just so busy. I have to work, throughout the weekend and whatnot. And I just looked at her and I'm like, you need to rest sometimes too.
Yeah.
You need a day of just rest, of just like
Yeah.
do nothing. And I promise you, you will come back stronger. And that's what I would say to my younger self too, is like, we can sometimes get so caught up in the grind and
Mhm.
Ed Milet, for example, talks about having 2 work days in one, right? He gets
Mhm.
up he gets up at 6 and then he works until noon. That's his first day. And then his
Right.
second one is 12 to 6. And it's like, that is great for a season, when you're
Yeah.
building or when you're growing, but realistically, is it sustainable for just what life throws at us? I'm not
Yeah.
so sure. And so I really appreciate you mentioning that. And I think that's definitely a message that needs to be out there more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's something I'm definitely still learning and need to get better at. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're so eager to do all the things and, get everything done and mark things off of our list. But yeah, I think just remembering what's actually important too at the end of the day and prioritizing the things that matter. And like for me, for one, too, it's waking up and not opening my phone first thing and making sure I'm prioritizing working out and doing my devotional in the morning and all that stuff
Mhm.
before I open my computer. And it's like, it's very hard to remember that sometimes, but I think we're better off for it when we kind of realign that focus. So,
For sure. Yeah, I think we definitely show up as better
yeah.
leaders, as better marketers for our clients, whatever it may be that we're doing. I think we definitely show up better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, Cassie, this has been so much fun. And so tell us, how can people find you on social? Tell us about the podcast. Tell us about all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and just being able to share this. And I'm excited to have you on Marketing Happy Hour. But Marketing Happy Hour, everything is pretty much linked on the website. So it's marketinghappyhr.com. And then one of my favorite platforms is LinkedIn, and you can find me at Cassie Tucker there as well.
All right, Cassie, thanks for being here. And everybody, we have more exciting guests on the pod here in season 4. So stay tuned, be sure to subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.